Few days ago, for the first time, Pope Francis spoke about the possibility of a genocide in Palestine, and he was calling for proofs. Today, December the 5th, Amnesty International investigation gives hundreds of proofs of this genocide. Let us pray for the poor victims. Let us pray for all the politicians who are backing this genocide, American, European, and above all, the Israeli government, the first responsible for this genocide. I would like to give you the summary of the report. You can find it on the official website of amnestyinternational.org, amnesty.org. Amnesty International's research has found sufficient basis to conclude that Israel has committed and is continuing to commit genocide against Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip. The organization said in a landmark new report published today. The report, you feel, actually, you are treated like subhuman, Israel's genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, documents how, during its military offensive launched in the wake of the deadly Hamas-led attacks in southern Israel on October the 7th, Israel has unleashed hell and destruction on Palestinians in Gaza brazenly, continuously, and with total impunity. Amnesty International's report, which demonstrates that Israel has carried out acts prohibited under the Genocide Convention with the specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza. These acts include killings, causing serious bodily or mental harm, and deliberately inflicting on Palestinians in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. Month after month, Israel has treated Palestinians in Gaza as a subhuman group unworthy of human rights and dignity, demonstrating its intent to physically destroy them, said Agnès Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International. Our damning findings must serve as a wake-up call to the international community. This is genocide. It must stop now. States that continue to transfer arms to Israel at this time must know they are violating their obligation to prevent genocide and are at risk of becoming complicit in genocide. All states with influence over Israel, particularly key arms suppliers like the USA and Germany, but also other EU member states, the UK and others, must act now to bring Israel's atrocities against Palestinians in Gaza to an immediate end. Over the past 2 months, the crisis has grown particularly acute in the North Gaza governorate, where a besieged population is facing starvation, displacement, and annihilation amid relentless bombardment and suffocating restrictions on life-saving humanitarian aid. Our research reveals that for months, Israel has persisted in committing genocidal acts, fully aware of the irreparable harm it was inflicting on Palestinians in Gaza. It continued to do so in defiance of countless warnings about the catastrophic humanitarian situation and of legally binding decisions from the International Court of Justice, ordering Israel to take immediate measures to enable the provision of humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza, said Agnès Callamard. Israel has repeatedly argued that its actions in Gaza are lawful and can be justified by its military goal to eradicate Hamas, but genocidal intent can coexist alongside military goals and does not need to be Israel's sole intent. Amnesty International examined Israel's acts in Gaza closely in their totality, taking into account their recurrence and simultaneous occurrence, and both their immediate impact and their cumulative and mutually reinforcing consequences. The organization considered the scale and severity of the casualties and destruction over time. It also analyzed public statements by officials, finding that prohibited acts were often announced and called for in the first place by high-level officials in charge of the war efforts. Taking into account the pre-existing context of dispossession, apartheid, and unlawful military occupation, in which these acts have been committed, we can find only one reasonable conclusion. Israel's intent is the physical destruction of Palestinians in Gaza, whether in parallel with or as a means to achieve its military goal of destroying Hamas, said Agnès Callamard. The atrocity crimes committed on October the 7th, 2023 by Hamas and other armored groups against Israelis and victims of other nationalities, including deliberate mass killings and hostage-taking, can never justify Israel's genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. International jurisprudence recognizes that the perpetrator does not need to succeed in their attempts to destroy the protected group, either in whole or in part, for genocide to have been committed. The commission of prohibited acts with the intent to destroy the group as such is sufficient. Amnesty International's report examines in detail Israel's violations in Gaza over 9 months between October the 7th, 2023 and early July 2024. The organization interviewed 212 people, including Palestinian victims and witnesses, local authorities in Gaza, healthcare workers, conducted field work, and analyzed an extensive range of visual and digital evidence, including satellite imagery. It also analyzed statements by senior Israeli government and military officials and official Israeli bodies. On multiple occasions, the organization shared its findings with the Israeli authorities, but had received no substantive response at the time of publication. Unprecedented scale and magnitude. Israel's actions following Hamas' deadly attacks on October the 7th have brought Gaza's population to the brink of collapse. Its brutal military offensive had killed more than 42,000 Palestinians, including over 13,300 children, and injured over 97,000 more. By October the 7th, 2024, many of them in direct or deliberately indiscriminate attacks, often wiping out entire multi-generational families. It has caused unprecedented destruction, which experts say occurred at a level and speed not seen in any other conflict in the 21st century, leveling entire cities and destroying critical infrastructure, agricultural land, and cultural and religious sites. It thereby rendered large swathes of Gaza uninhabitable. Mohammed, who fled with his family from Gaza City to Rafah in March 2024 and was displaced again in May 2024, described their struggle to survive in horrifying conditions. Quote, "Here, in Deir el-Balah, it's like an apocalypse. You have to protect your children from insects, from the heat, and there is no clean water, no toilets, all while the bombing never stops. You feel like you are subhuman here." Israel imposed conditions of life in Gaza that created a deadly mixture of malnutrition. End of quote. Israel imposed conditions of life in Gaza that created a deadly mixture of malnutrition, hunger, and diseases, and exposed Palestinians to a slow, calculated death. Israel has also subjected hundreds of Palestinians from Gaza to incommunicado detention, torture, and other ill treatment. Viewed in isolation, some of the acts investigated by Amnesty International constitute serious violations of international humanitarian law or international human rights law. But in looking at the broader picture of Israel's military campaign and the cumulative impact of its policies and acts, genocidal intent is the only reasonable conclusion.